We sat at opposite ends of the couch, a stretch of silence lying between us, heavy and familiar. My thumb flicked across my phone screen, not really absorbing the words or images. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed her shift slightly, the cushion dipping with her movement. "Derek," she said softly, her voice uncertain. It took a second for me to realize she was addressing me. I looked up, caught off guard. She wasn't looking at me, but fixed her gaze somewhere across the room. "I need to tell you something," she continued, her voice strained like she was bracing herself. "And I don't want you to take it the wrong way." That sentence alone sent unease crawling up my spine. A disclaimer, the kind people use before saying something that cuts deep. I straightened, phone forgotten in my lap, my pulse quickening. She drew in a shaky breath, still avoiding my eyes. "I don't think I can keep being physical with you." The words dropped between us like a stone, and it took a moment for me to process. "Physical?" I repeated carefully, unsure I'd heard right. She nodded quickly, as if she'd practiced this. "I mean kissing, hugging, holding hands, all of it. It doesn't feel right anymore." The room suddenly felt smaller, the air thick. My thoughts scrambled to keep up. No touch, no affection, no closeness. "You're saying you don't want any affection at all?" My voice came out rough, my throat dry. This time she finally met my eyes. But instead of warmth, instead of even conflict, there was nothing, just a flat, distant look. "I just don't feel close to you anymore, Derek. It feels forced." That last word hit harder than everything else. Forced. It wasn't about a single moment. It was a rejection of every effort I'd made to bridge the gap. Every time I reached for her hand, every forehead kiss before work, every quiet reassurance. It was all dismissed. We sat there in silence, the space between us wider than ever. Even the noises from outside felt distant, muffled, as if the world had shrunk to this couch and her words. I tried to swallow, to form a response that wasn't desperate or angry, but nothing came. At last, I stood and walked into the bathroom, closing the door quietly behind me. I leaned over the sink, staring at my reflection, not searching for solutions, just staring because I didn't know where else to look. My own face looked back at me, weary, confused, like even the man in the mirror didn't recognize this version of me, a husband whose marriage had slipped away almost unnoticed. When I finally returned, she was back to scrolling her phone, her expression calm, untouched, as though we hadn't just dismantled the last piece of what bound us. I stood behind the couch, questions swarming in my head, but I didn't voice a single one. "Okay," I said instead. She glanced over her shoulder, surprised. "Okay, yeah, I hear you. I understand." My tone was steady, even. Her blink told me she'd been expecting something else. A plea, a fight, some attempt to save us. But there would be none of that, because deep down, something had clicked. This wasn't just about the absence of touch. It was about what that absence meant. When the person you've shared years with says they can't even hug you, it isn't just preference. It's a declaration. They've already left in every way that matters, even if their things are still in the house. That night, we lay on the same mattress, a gulf between us more powerful than any wall. I stared at the ceiling, listening to the fan's steady hum, the faint creaks of the house, her shallow breathing beside me. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. Just a cold, sharp clarity settled over me. When the alarm rang the next morning, I didn't hit snooze like usual. I rose immediately, feet hitting the cold floor. I didn't reach for her, didn't hesitate. I walked straight to the garage, pulled out 2 moving boxes, and carried them upstairs. I wasn't walking out of the house yet, but in my mind, I had already left. I began placing things inside. A few books, my toiletries, small pieces of myself. Step by step, I was packing more than belongings. I was packing away a life I could no longer hold on to. The watch she'd once slipped onto my wrist back when touch between us meant something. Warm, natural, alive, sat at the bottom of the box. Each item I packed felt like reclaiming a piece of myself I'd lost along the way. She didn't appear until around 9, shuffling into the kitchen with sleep, still clinging to her, hair messy, eyes heavy. She glanced at me with faint confusion. "You're up early," she murmured. Yeah, I said, not looking away from the glow of my laptop screen. I was sketching the first draft of a plan. Not a bitter checklist, not a revenge scheme, just a quiet outline of what my life could look like without her. I heard the clink of a mug, the soft pad of her bare feet on tile. She moved around the kitchen, like a ghost drifting through a place that no longer belonged to her. No kiss, no touch as usual, she said finally, her tone holding something I couldn't quite name. I stayed focused on the laptop. Everything okay? She asked, leaning against the counter, her fingers circling the rim of her glass. I closed the laptop gently, leaned back, and met her gaze for the first time in days. Everything's finally clear, I said, her brows pulled together. What do you mean? I drew in a slow breath. I've been clinging to something you gave up on long ago. Last night just proved it. Her eyes fell to the floor, her body shifting. I didn't mean it to sound harsh. I'm just confused. No, I said quietly but firmly. You're not confused. You're sure. And that's fine. I won't try to change your mind. But you'll need to accept my response. Her grip on the glass tightened. And what response is that? I won't keep chasing someone who treats my affection like it's too much. The kitchen filled with silence. She had been the one to say it, plain and final. No more kisses, no more hugs, no more touch. That wasn't just a request. It was a separation of the heart. The kind without paperwork. The kind you enforce slowly until it breaks everything. I rose with calm, picked up my keys from the counter. I'm not angry, I added. I'm just finished begging for what you've already withdrawn. That same afternoon, I opened a separate checking account. Nothing secret, just mine. A small declaration that I existed independently of us. I moved my clothes into the guest room, gathered my things. I didn't slam doors, didn't write notes. I simply created space. When she asked why, I told her, because that room doesn't feel like mine anymore. At first, she only noticed in small ways. The missing razor in the bathroom, the gap in our bed where my pillow used to be. Then she noticed more. She began cooking again, playing old songs, inviting me to sit with her during shows she loved. I answered with polite nods, faint smiles. Not cruel, just distant. One evening, she made lasagna, my favorite. She poured my drink without asking, just like before. I thanked her, ate, cleaned my plate, and walked away. No tension, but no warmth. Just the quiet civility of two people under one roof, not two people sharing a life. 2 days later, she left a sticky note on my laptop. I missed the way we used to talk. I read it, closed the screen, and went to bed. The truth was, I didn't miss the talking. I missed a version of her who made me feel seen. That woman wasn't sitting across from me anymore. She tried again, wearing the perfume I used to love, leaning in closer during conversations, tilting her head like she used to when she wanted my attention. But it rang hollow. You can't tell someone their touch is unwelcome, and then expect it back once you change your mind. Love doesn't work like a faucet. About 3 weeks later, she sat beside me on the couch, closer than usual, her hand brushing mine. I let her fingers rest there, but I didn't hold them. Her eyes welled. I know I hurt you, she whispered. I nodded, eyes still on the muted TV. I was lost, she admitted. I didn't realize how far gone I was. I turned to her calmly. And now that you do? Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. I want to try again. I want us back. That was the moment she believed would unlock some hidden part of me. But that part had long since gone quiet. I appreciate your honesty, I said gently, but I've already let go. Her face drained of color. What does that mean? It means I can't give myself to someone who made me feel invisible. You can just stop touching me, Emily. You stopped seeing me. Her tears spilled over. I thought you just needed space. I thought you'd come back. I needed respect, I said. She wrapped her arms around herself, pacing. I was afraid, she choked out. Afraid of being touched when I didn't feel close. I didn't know how to explain it. I understand, I said steadily, and I don't blame you for your feelings. But I won't stay after being starved of love, only to be called back when it's convenient. She sank down against the wall, broken. I thought you'd always be here. I breathed deeply, leaning against the armrest. Until I realized you weren't. That night, I stayed in the guest room. Later, she knocked. "Can I come in?" she asked, voice trembling. "No," I said softly. "Not tonight." I heard her retreat, footsteps fading. The next morning, I packed a small suitcase. Not everything, just enough. When she saw me at the door, she didn't ask where I was headed. She already knew. I paused, looking around. The hallway where we once danced, the kitchen where we planned our future, the living room where Sunday mornings felt endless. Grief settled in my chest, but beneath it, something else, relief. Because this time I was choosing myself.